Hello, and welcome once again to Family Historian. My name is Stephen Conti. Tonight we are going to feature one of the most beautiful and interesting areas of genealogy, Native American genealogy. So if any of you out there have Native American roots, please be proud of it and don't try to hide it. And I'm also very proud to have as my guest tonight a lady who has been here before. She is a very important genealogist, and she has discovered 2 Native American tribes in her genealogy. Her name is Janice Cross Gilliard, and she has a resume that reads like a who's who in genealogy. And tonight she's going to teach us the how-to of Native American genealogical research. So please take notes. Janice, welcome again to my show.
Thank you, Stephen, and thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and we're going to talk about your many contributions in genealogy at the end of our show.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Now, you discovered that you descend from 2 Native American tribes.
Yes.
Okay, what a thrill. I'm envious. Okay. Now, you prepared a wonderful outline for me, Janice. The first thing we have to do, or the researcher has to do, once he or she has identified the tribe, is to know your tribe. Can you expound on that?
Yes. So a lot of us, a lot of families rather, there's oral history that's been shared with them. I always encourage folks to research the tribe thoroughly, learn all you can, find out where they were located, if they exist today, and what the history is.
Right.
And also to learn about all of the record sets that may exist for them.
Right. Now, in your case, tell our viewers about your paternal tribe.
Yes.
From Rhode Island, I
absolutely.
believe, and the name of that tribe.
Absolutely. So the name of that tribe is the Pokanoket tribe out of Bristol, Rhode Island. And for a long time, many of my family members said that, oh, our great-grandfather was Cherokee. He actually was not Cherokee. I did the research, and he was Pokanoket. And the tribe still exists in Rhode Island today,
right.
Bristol, Rhode Island.
We do have a map showing it's a historic tribal map of Rhode Island.
Yes, yes.
And was it part of the Narragansett Nation?
Right, Narragansett, or sometimes you'll hear the word Wampanoag as well. But Pokanoket is located in Bristol, Rhode Island, and some parts of Massachusetts.
Right, very good. History books, I'm sure there have been books written about the certain tribes, is that correct?
So for the Pokanoket tribe, and I believe we have a graphic of that, there is a book for it, several books actually. You can also do research on the internet. Any tribe that you're interested in most cases there's a publication for it.
Right. And you did mention oral history, which
yes.
I think the Native Americans invented. I mean, they mentioned they are very respectful of their
absolutely.
ancestors.
And you have a lot of cultures that they hand down oral tradition. But I always encourage folks, you have the oral history, make sure you do the research to confirm it. And in most instances, you can confirm it.
Right. We do have some photos of the Pokanoket tribe.
Yes.
And I'm very proud to say that the current chief is a woman.
Yes.
A female
yes.
who inherited that from her dad.
And she took over that position. Her dad was William Guy, and her name is Tracy Brown. And she's doing a phenomenal job.
Right. And you went up there for a family reunion?
I did. It's called a Strawberry Festival / powwow. And it's a little bit different than what we tend to think of in terms of family reunion.
Right.
But you have a powwow. You have the tribal dances that they do, all kinds of beautiful music and different talks about the tribe itself, the culture, what's been handed down. One of the dishes that I tried for the first time was succotash, which was very, very interesting.
Yes.
And powwows are very, very sacred. And they don't particularly like for you to take pictures unless you ask for permission.
Yes.
And their outfits or their regalia, you don't refer to it as costumes. It's specifically regalia.
Regalia. And we do have a picture of you with your cousins, your
Pokanoket
cousins. At the family reunion.
Yes, it's called a Strawberry Festival. And I went up, I think this is about 2.5 years ago. I wasn't able
Yeah.
to make it this year because of my own personal family, different family line,
Yeah.
family reunion. But yes, they're wonderful celebrations to go to. You can learn so much.
Yes.
And my whole thing is once you find out about the tribe and all, again, learn as much as you can
Right.
about the tribe and their customs.
And Tracy is the current chief.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And years ago, there was a very beautiful and famous woman of your tribe. Her name was
Red Wing.
Princess Redwing.
Yes, and she represented that tribe very, very well. I mean, she spoke throughout the country. She dealt with presidents, and her whole thing was to change the narrative or the perception or the negative perception
Yes.
of Native American people. So,
Right.
wonderful woman.
Now, every tribe or most tribes will have a corresponding history center or museum. And the Pokanoket is no exception, and we
Right.
do have a photo
Of the Tamaquac Museum
And
in
where-
Rhode
where-
Island, in Bristol, Rhode Island.
I see. So it's right near the reservation
Yes.
there.
And so if there's a museum, we encourage you to visit the museum, visit the location.
And they will have artifacts and
Right, and they have different
collectibles.
talks, various books, and also sessions, arts and crafts as well. So I encourage that. Make sure you make a visit to the location.
And you are wearing a very beautiful lavender-colored necklace. Tell us about this.
So I'll tell you how I received this necklace. When I went to Rhode Island for the first time, my friend bought some jewelry for me, and it was that beautiful turquoise color that you see.
Right.
And so I got there, and my cousin looked, and I was like, "Oh, look at the jewelry that my friend bought." And he said, "Nah, that's not the right color." And so the correct color for the Narragansett or Pokanoket tribe is a lavender, purplish, beige color.
Right.
And it's made from a seashell. And so the next time I went, he gave me this necklace.
So that is indicative
Right, of this particular color for that tribe, the Pokanoket
of
tribe.
that tribe.
It's a lavender, purplish color, and beige.
Okay, now we have studied your wonderful, beautiful tribe. Let's get down to the research, okay? And this is heavy, so take notes. Years ago, in the 1820s, on 11 March 1824 to be exact, you had the Bureau of Indian Affairs.
Right.
This was during the presidency
Of Andrew Jackson.
Of Andrew Jackson. What was the purpose of this? Because I know it goes back further into 1775, Ben Franklin. What
Right.
was the purpose
So you
of
had
the...
treaties that were
Yes.
established between, government and the Native people, and a lot of those treaties were broken. And so, you established this commission to correct some of the wrongs that were done.
Yes.
You had forced removal, and so it was just to try to make up for it, and also to kind of manage the affairs. It wasn't always pleasant.
No.
And that, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, it still exists to this day.
Yes.
So it was to pretty much manage in terms of land, resources, to try to do it fairly. Wasn't always done fairly.
No.
And a lot of corrections are still being made to this day.
However, there was one man who was a commissioner who was a Native American.
Right.
And we have his name as Eli
Parker.
And he served as commissioner from 1869 to
And that's
1871.
correct, yes. And so you had several commissioners, and basically, and especially if they were Native American, to me that was an effort just to make sure that things were handled as fairly as possible.
Right. And there are records from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and they're at the National Archives.
And you can find them online as well.
Most of them are in the form of petitions and correspondence. And I think we do have an example of one.
Right, and you can visit the National Archives, their website, or either also the Library of Congress, their website.
Now, let's get back to we always come back to the Federal Population Census, which is the byline of genealogy, okay? It began in 1790, but in the case of the Native American, the census taker was spotty. Is that correct?
Right.
I mean,
everything is always done when it comes to back then, when it came to census records, through the lens of the census taker.
Right.
And so, sometimes they were very, very clear that
Yes.
this person is Native American. The person stated that, and sometimes it's what they thought.
Right. But the 1880 census, which we have a copy of, and this is very rare. This is rare. Don't depend on this all the time. tell us about that first
So-
top entry.
Absolutely. So there is an 1880 federal population census.
Yes.
And it's for my ancestor. And the last name, it has his last name, which was Cross, his first name, which was Samuel. And then what was really, really amazing
Yeah.
to me, and I was surprised to see, was the letter I, indicating Indian.
Under race.
Under race, yes.
And that's a rarity.
Right. And so this census taker was accurate. He took the information that my second great grandfather shared with him, and it was correct. So in a lot of instances, you have where they didn't do that, or
Right.
maybe they told
Right.
them, and it just depended on what they wanted to do. But here we have a record.
Okay, and that's a rare one.
Yes.
Okay. Now, here's something I did not know until Janice came along with all of her knowledge. There was an Indian census, Indian
Yes.
census rolls that were taken yearly from 1885 to 1940.
Right.
And these are available at the National Archives or other search.
Right. Family Search, Ancestry.com. Yes.
Right,
You can find
Indian
them.
census rolls. And these are fascinating, and we're going to find out right now. Okay,
Yes.
Janice.
So it'll indicate, here's one that we have, and it indicates the Indian name, the English name, the relationship, the age, and also the ancestor on a previous roll. So there's a lot of really, really good information. And then it also has a section that says the latest spelling
Right,
of
and
the name.
I'm not going to ask you to read the Indian name, you know. I mean, we
Yes.
hear about Sitting Bull, and we hear about Red Wing,
Right.
but those are English translations.
Correct.
And these people had their own language.
That's right, yeah. And you'll see the names. Of course, you'll take your time and, phonetically pronounce it as best you can. But when folks say that records don't exist for Native Americans, that's not correct. They do.
They do. They do. Very good. Now, let's skip ahead. There were two white men. Okay, there was a senator named Henry L. Dawes.
Yes.
And he put together the famous Dawes
Roll,
rolls.
correct.
For, and I hate to use this word, they were mostly for the civilized tribes.
Right,
I don't like to use the word civilized.
right. And a lot of people don't think
Because
much
they were
about
not
that.
recognized
Exactly.
by the American government.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
And the tribes, may I recite the
Yes,
tribes? All right.
absolutely.
So if you are of Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, or Seminole descent, you
Right.
will be on the Dawes
Dawes
roll.
roll,
Now, what
right.
was the purpose of the Dawes roll? The Henry, he was a senator, as I mentioned, the Henry Dawes
Correct, right.
rolls.
And so this was, like as you already mentioned, dealing with the Cherokee. And on those rolls, you'll see, again, name, relationship to petitioner, age, sex, blood, tribal enrollment, name of father, the year, district, name of mother. It gives a lot of information.
Right.
A lot of information.
And the years of these rolls, Janice, are 1899 to 1907.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes. And in the records you want to check, you may see some variations, but just check everything. And I always tell people, you'll see Dawes roll, read what it's about, read how to use it properly, so you're not frustrated in the research process.
And again, these are available online.
Yes, so you have Ancestry.com, FamilySearch.org, and also a website called Fold3, F-O-L-D, the number
Yes.
3.com. They're on there as well.
Isn't that for military,
These records are on there. Yes.
for Native Americans?
For Native
I never
Americans,
knew
yes,
that.
yes.
Really? Okay. Now, the second man that we have, Geon Miller.
Yes.
Okay, and Geon Miller, his rolls go from 1906 to 1911. And where did this come from? Why? What did this come from?
Some folks may have ancestors who were part of the Trail of Tears.
Yes.
And so you had descendants that were filing claims. There was money set aside. And that's where, once again, you had the forced removal of people. You're telling them where to go. I have an example of researching an ancestor. They were born in North Carolina, but then they're buried in a Cherokee cemetery in Oklahoma. And that led to my discovery on my mother's side of Cherokee ancestry, which they never, ever talked about. And I found a whole bunch of them
Now,
listed
this is
in
your
those
mother's
records.
side.
This is on my mother's side,
So
yes.
you descend on both sides.
Yes. So on my father's side, the paternal line is the Pokanoket tribe. On my mother's side, the maternal line is the Cherokee line. Now, on the Pokanoket side, on my dad's side, they always said we had Native ancestry. On my mother's side, no one knew.
Until you came along.
Until I started doing the research. No one was aware of it.
And you were astonished.
I was stunned.
You were stunned.
You know, because you have a lot of African American people that will say, I have Cherokee ancestry.
Yes, yes.
They don't research it. They can't prove it. But then here, I'm an example of someone where no one was saying it, and I stumbled upon it. And I found so much information.
And now also when African American people claim Native American, no one believes them.
Right. Well, they should, though. And they should just do the research, because you'll find out that they were closely related during that Trail of Tears. You had a lot of enslaved people that were a part of that.
Right, right. Now, the Trail of Tears, and wasn't there a lawsuit by the Native Americans in 1905 that resulted in the Guion Miller?
Right, and so there was
they won that lawsuit.
Exactly. And so you had folks filing claims. Now, you had a lot of people who were not necessarily Native American filing anyway, and all of that had to be fleshed out. But then you had a lot of people who filed, and they could prove it. They would, if you gave the name of your ancestor, and especially if you knew the Native name and all, there were records that they could check.
Right.
You know, and then some people were, you know, the claims were rejected falsely. They shouldn't have been. So again, so many wrongs that were done, but, you know, research and history, just trying to correct it, or just share the correct narrative of what happened.
Right. Janice, what is, I guess it depends on the tribe. What degree of blood do they recognize where you are accepted?
Well, you know, back then it varied, but it was based on percentage. But, you know, sometimes I don't think that that's fair, because it's like, was that information really, really accurate back then?
Right.
You know, so percentage-wise, it varied.
Right.
You know.
Now, we've spoken about the Cherokee, which is a very popular tribe. I mean, there are some tribes, I never heard of the Pokanoket. Okay.
Right.
And then there's another tribe up in Canada, the Micmacs.
Right.
And now, were these tribes ever recorded? Because these records really concentrate on Cherokee.
Well, if you think about history, right? It's yes, it's recorded. You know, a lot of people think that it doesn't exist, but look at your local history for the area. I do a lot of research.
So that's the alternative.
Right.
To using these sources.
Exactly.
Okay.
But there is, when all of these lands were being settled, you can type in any location throughout this country on Wikipedia, and it'll say the settlers they encountered. There were people there, and the people that they encountered were Native American people.
Right.
So if you do your research, depending on the area that you're looking for, you will find it. It's there. There may not necessarily be a published work on it, but history, it was done. Somebody recorded something about it. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is currently happening with Native Americans, descendants of Native Americans? I know they own casinos here and there.
Right.
But,
I mean, that's just a part of it, but a lot of them are reclaiming the land.
Okay.
That's happening in Rhode Island. I believe you have Brown University, and folks are saying, look, this land, you received it, and the way that you received it was not right, and it wasn't fair. There are acknowledgements. I mean, in New Jersey, if you go to a lot of churches or universities and they have a presentation or something that they're doing, they will say, we stand on the land, this land is the land of the Lenape.
Right.
And so acknowledgements are taking place. Certain mayors or politicians are apologizing for what was done. And then, to me, the most important part is just educating all of us. You know, who was there before you got there? You know, we're here in Union County. Union County, Lenape. You know, you go to Ramapo, you know, you have the Ramapo. So I always say, before you criticize something or if you don't know about it, just research and study it. And I think we're all better off for that.
Right. Many famous people have Native American blood, and they are very proud of it, as Janice Cross Gilliard is.
Yes.
Okay, and I'm going to name some of these people, and you might be surprised. Carol Burnett. I don't know what tribe.
That was a surprise.
Yeah, I don't know what tribe she comes from, but I heard her on television say she was very proud of her indigenous roots.
Yes.
Another person that you all know, Jimi Hendrix, the great musician Jimi Hendrix. James Earl Jones, you told me about him.
And just want to do a little insert, was researching a friend's family history, and she's connected to him.
Who a
A
friend
very
of
dear
yours?
friend of mine is related to him, and I've researched his line as well. Yes.
And talk
Native
about
American.
relations. Wayne Newton, the guy who's very famous in Las Vegas,
Yes.
and the fantastic actor Ed Norton are both direct descendants of Pocahontas.
Yeah. So when you do your research, you never know what you're going to find.
Right.
You know.
And two more gals who are great singers, jazz singers, Keely Smith and Kay Starr.
Right.
Some of my older viewers will remember those two gals.
And we spoke earlier, if you watch the show True Detectives with Jodie Foster, there's a woman that is her counterpart, Kaylee Reese. And Kaylee Reese is a cousin, and she's from the Pokanoket tribe out of Rhode Island.
Right. Janice, before we close, can you just summarize for our viewers the how-to of Native American genealogy?
So the first thing is if you've heard oral history or it's been handed down that you have it, the first thing is just research the tribe. As soon as you find out that name, research the tribe. Visit the land. If they have a powwow, if they have a family reunion, if they have a strawberry festival, which most of them do, it's around June, typically the second week in June, you definitely want to attend. And the resources are there to connect and prove out your family history and how you're connected. And it's worth it to do it. I know that it was very rewarding and worth it for me to do it.
And then you do your formal research.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And once again, what's the best definition of a powwow?
So that is I consider it a cultural celebration for Native Americans. It is spiritual, and you learn so much. You know, there's the dance, there's families coming together, there's all ages, you know, from the oldest to the youngest. And it's just a very, very spiritual and rewarding feeling to connect with your Native ancestry. Or whatever your culture is, whatever your heritage is, it's worth it to research it and share those stories. Don't hold on to them. Share them with especially the younger generations.
Great. Well, I hope that you have inspired my viewers tonight
Yes.
to accept and research their Native American roots.
Absolutely.
And in the beginning of my show, I mentioned that Janice has a resume that's like a who's who in the world of genealogy. I'm just going to go over her numerous titles in genealogy. Can you say them for us?
So I'm the immediate past president of the Afro-American Historical and Genealogical Society. I'm on the board for the Genealogical Society of New Jersey. I'm also on the board for the National Genealogical Society. And there are a number of other things that I do, but I absolutely love family history and encourage other folks to do their research.
And do you do presentations
I
on,
do,
on
all the
Native
time.
American and African American?
So for the first time at our family reunion this year, 4th of July weekend, I did a presentation to share with them that history, where oral history had been handed down. I actually showed them, and it was overwhelming for them. A lot of them were very, very emotional. And then we also had two tribal leaders. We streamed them in to greet our family and to share a little bit about the history.
Wonderful. Well, this
Yes.
has been a wonderful interview.
you,
I learned a
Stephen.
lot, as I
Thank
hope my
you.
viewers have, on this beautiful area of genealogy, Native American genealogy, with Janice Cross Gilliard, genealogist par excellence. Okay,
Thank you for
Janice,
the
thank
opportunity,
you for
Stephen.
coming on
Thank
my
you.
show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and thank you for
having me.
watching. My name is Stephen Conti, and remember, I think my final statement exemplifies the Native Americans. We are all descendants of ancient civilizations.
Yes.
Genealogy is your key to the history of your family. And so until next time, this is Stephen Conti wishing you the very best of luck in your research, and above all, happy ancestor hunting. Good night.